Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Canada. People tend to think of that country with some mirth. They like to think of it as America Light, a place where nice people live and it's cold. Most people don't realize what Canada really is. What it really is death. 75% of its population live within a mere 100 miles of the US border. That number goes above 90% if you go up to 200 miles. For scale, Canada stretches for about 2,000 miles north of the US border, while being about 3,500 miles wide. You can't begin to imagine how large that is. The only country larger than that on the planet is Russia, which is a bit less than twice the size, but has about 8 times the population. That should be a good clue as to how empty Canada is. And it's not merely empty, it's inhospitable. Even the southern regions where the majority of the population lives get so cold as to deter most people from living there. Go further north and it gets worse. Furthermore, the very soil is inhospitable. The Canadian Shield, as it is called, covers most of northern Canada and is a region where earth is very shallow, where agriculture is impossible. Canada is mostly a forsaken wasteland. And in that wasteland, there are things hiding, things waiting, things that gorge on flesh, always hungry as the land they chose to live in is so barren that they barely ever catch any prey. And this is my warning to you. I've seen people interested in following the barren, lonely roads of the Canadian North. People thinking they were going on a fun road trip. I know because I was one of them. Get that idea out of your head. There is nothing worth seeing down those roads, and there will be no one to save you if something goes wrong. If your car breaks down up there, someone will die.
It was 2005, and I had just quit my job working in Lake Louise, Alberta. I had been living in hotel property. Lake Louise is a tourist town. If you work or live there, you live on your work property. So having just quit, I had nowhere to live. I rented for a week in the local campground. A really big campground surrounded, like most of the town itself, in a 5-foot electrified grizzly fence. This was in late April, early May, so apart from one other lot, a big-ass motorhome, the campground was empty and pitch black. The first 2 nights were fine, cold but fine and quiet. On the third night, I was awakened around 11 p.m. There was something outside my tent letting its hoof drop right beside my head, outside my tent. It wasn't stamping, it was simply raising and letting it fall, over and over, inches from my head. I turned on my flashlight slowly and lit some candles, but the hoof didn't stop. Whatever this thing was, it knew it was scaring me, and I knew it was sentient or self-aware. I could tell from how its vision felt on me. I could tell it was watching me, and it was aware. I finally drifted off to sleep. The next night it was drizzling, a light rain. This beast returned, and now, clear as day, there were 2 hooves rising and falling, clearly from 2 different sources. I knew then, I could feel it, that I was in incredible danger. I could tell these entities, if you'd like, could fuck my shit up, and worse, I could tell that they wanted me to know that. The soft rain continued and the hoofs continued, and I was aware of them watching me through the tent. I lit up a tall candle of St. Jude, patron saint of lost causes, one of my best friends gave me before my trip. I then lit every other candle I had. I didn't sleep that night until I saw the first light of dawn slipping through my tent, though at some point, around 3 a.m. I think, the hoofs stopped. When I left my tent that morning, there was a big-ass log, the kind you would use to set fire logs on to cut them, sitting about 5 feet in front of the entrance to my tent. To me, all I could think was that this was some sort of altar. I really got the vibe these things wanted some sort of tribute or sacrifice. I packed my backpack with some clothes and left my food and tent there. I went to town to spend a few days on a friend's couch. When I returned a few days later to get my shit, nothing had been touched, and it was all I had left it. I asked the guy at the front if there had ever been any animals that had gotten over the bare fence, and I told him what had happened to me. He said it was spooky, and then made some joke or reference to the Blair Witch. Those mountains have powerful juju, though.
Be uranium prospector in northern Canada. Never found shit, so had to get a different job eventually. Often literally hundreds of miles from the nearest settlement. Have sat phone, GPS, radio beacon, etc., so safer than it sounds. Standard procedure is to get choppered to remote locations with gear. Enough supplies for about 9 days. I'm usually only out for 5 days tops. It's summer, not too cold, but mosquitoes are out. Particularly a long outing in Northwest Territories one time for 7 days, about 400 miles northeast of Uranium City, Saskatchewan. No chopper because of bad weather starting on day 6. Anyway, on the 4th day of the trip, doing my thing as usual. For example, wandering around with a Geiger counter praying for a click. Come to an unusually flat, clear spot in the woods. Area appears vaguely circular and about 300 meters across. Trees normal around edges, but get increasingly tiny and gnarled towards the center. Decide to check it out, start moving farther in. Notice a nearly complete lack of foliage the closer I get to the center. The trees are starting to resemble bonsais, and their lower trunks look charred. Reach the very center of the clearing. There are no trees, no moss, nothing. Just a patch of this white sand like you see on the West Coast. The counter is dead quiet, not even background readings. Decided to dig in the sand patch, got nothing better to do. I figure maybe a meteor fell here or something, which explains the burnt trees. Notice the mosquitoes have all gone. It's so nice I don't really question it. I've been digging for about 2 minutes. A fold-up shovel is a pain in the ass. Suddenly hear a clank and hit something hard. Think it's a rock and try to shift it with a shovel. It won't budge. Start brushing it off with hand when WTF.jpg. It's a big-ass cog like from an old cable crane. I go to grab it and at first it feels like my hands are burning. They weren't. The thing is ice cold. I finish uncovering it and haul it out of the hole. Not easy because it weighs like 60 kilos and 2 feet in diameter. It's all black like it was in a fire. I'm nowhere near any railways, active or otherwise. The thing looks too heavy-duty to be from a plane. Standing wondering how the hell it got there when I notice how cold my feet are. Look down and nearly shit a brick when I realize I've sunk up to my knees in dry sand. Climb out of sand, which feels way cold now. I see my hands have gone all white and veiny. It suddenly dawns on me how screwed up this place is. I actually start feeling dizzy and decide to GTFO pronto. Look around for my shovel and it's gone. The cog is starting to sink back into the sand. Fuck this. I leave everything but my pack and book it out of there back the way I came.
I love telling this story. Working in far northern Alberta, area where it's literally a huge-ass forest and only signs of civilization are oil, gas wells, and plants. It's all muskeg in the forest area. Muskeg is scary just by itself. It's literally soft ground from decaying stuff in the forest that has grass growing on top. It can be immensely deep water, rotting plants and animals, but thick enough for grass to grow, and some small trees to even take root. It's Alberta's quicksand. Moose are known to venture into it and get stuck and drown. In areas like this, some of the wells can only be visited by most vehicles in winter. Some are even more remote and can only be accessed by helicopter, even in winter. I picked up a pretty sweet job on one of the helicopter runs doing maintenance for 2 years. I want to stress these locations are at least 300 to 400 kilometers away from any real civilization at this point, and traveling in these areas is dangerous not only because of animals, but shit like muskeg. One summer my pilot landed us down. As we land, a guy exits the little shack set up on site. He looks pretty normal, a little tattered and rough but looks like a normal human. Fairly straight-cut short black hair, bit of a 5 o'clock shadow, Iron Maiden t-shirt that is way too large, regular blue jeans. He's going towards the tree line. Yell out to him something like, "Hey, what are you doing here? We can help you get home." He keeps going. Yell out again, "What the fuck, man? How did you get out here? We can help you." The pilot even yells out something like, We can cancel our run and get you to safety." He makes it to the tree line while we are yelling. He stops, looks back kind of. His face kind of slips into a smile. He then runs into the trees and disappears. No one at work believed us. Still stuck with me. Not really paranormal, but truly the weirdest thing I have ever experienced. I just want to know what he was doing out there. Everything in the shack was normal.
All my life I've lived out in the middle of nowhere, in places throughout northern Canada. I have a ton of stories, starting with one of my earliest memories. I'm around 12, go walking out around the property because I'm bored. On our property are 2 abandoned houses beside each other. Dad put a fence around them and told me to not enter them. LSL will see.jpg. Can't get the fence gate opened. Back up and run into it. Suddenly it opens, and I smack right into the front door of the first house. The door literally cracks in half, and I land on the floor of the house. The air is cold and stale. Immediately I began to feel very scared for some reason. Get to my feet and turn to run. Fence is suddenly closed again, but I run towards it anyway. Trip over something and smack face on the door frame. Taste blood, scared, start screaming. Try to get to my feet again. Something has my foot. Kick and scream. Suddenly Dad is there, unlocking the fence frantically. Grabs me. Brings me home. Never speak of it again. Another experience with the houses, many years later, about 16. Remember what happened when I was 12? Decide to go back. Take the key from Dad's keychain this time. Go to houses and unlock fence. The door to the first house was left the same way since my first experience. Waltz on in. It's cold inside, even though it's fairly warm outside. Walk around the house, it's totally empty and even rotting in some places. All is normal, and I wonder what happened last time. About to leave and go to the next house when I get the urge to turn around. Resist and keep walking towards the door. Suddenly I feel a hand on my shoulder. Unreal grip, drop to my knees. Get pulled back. Burning sensation on my shoulder where I'm being grabbed. The same fearful feeling washes over me again and I start to scream. Literally tear my jacket off and get free. Run out of the house and out of the fence. Forget to lock the gate, but I don't even care. I ran screaming all the way back to my house. Go straight to my room for the rest of the night. This is when the messed up shit started happening. We'll continue. A few days later, I'm chilling in my room. It's about 22 o'clock and I'm playing games on my computer. My sister screams from her room and I get up and rush to the door. I knock and ask if she's all right. If she needs help. No answer. Knock again. Silence. Suddenly knocks from the other side of the door in the exact same way I did. Keep repeating. Back away for a minute and stare. Not sure what to do. Decide to open the door. The room is empty. Anon, what are you doing in my room? Jump around to see my sister standing behind me. Did you scream or something? I ask nervously. She looks confused and says no. I freak out internally and go back to my room very quickly. That night, I keep hearing the same knocking pattern on my door. Ignore it as best I can. A few weeks later, I'm going down to the kitchen at about 3 a.m. As I enter the kitchen, I see my sister standing there in the middle of the kitchen. She's facing me. Her eyes are open, but she doesn't respond to me at all. She just stares at me blankly. I say her name, poke her, ask if she's okay. No answer for a bit. Confused. Cautiously get my water. As I turn to try and see what she's doing, she suddenly goes, "Yes, Anon, I'm fine," in this scary monotone voice and goes upstairs. I hear her door slam so hard it seems unreal and almost echoes. I flip out and run back to my room, forgetting my water in the kitchen. I asked her about it the next morning. She has no memory of it. It's been a few months, and the odd things have been happening more often. My sister begins to get very sick, bedridden at this point. She regularly stands in random places in the house at night. Mom and Dad never see this. It's only me who experiences this shit. One night she's outside. I step out and ask her what she's doing. It's the middle of winter and cold. She suddenly turned towards me and in these strange, jerky movements walked towards me, gets a few inches from me, and her head snaps up and she screams, points behind me and gets a look of pure terror on her face. I turn and see nothing out of the ordinary. Ask her WTF. As I'm looking at her, I get the same feeling as I did from that house. I'm about to say something when she pushed me hard, and I fell backwards, hitting my head off a table. I get knocked out. Wake up on the couch with my parents looking at me worried. My sister is still in bed. I tell them about it. Mom doesn't believe me and thinks I'm making shit up because I hit my head. Dad looks very worried, and when Mom leaves the room, he begins to tell me that he too has seen my sister do this shit. He's seen her stand in random places at night. I heard the knocking sounds. We both share a moment of, nope. At this point, we decide to move, and we're in the middle of moving stuff from one to another. It's about 23 o'clock, and I'm in my room at the new house. All is silent, and I'm working on my drawings. Suddenly, the door flies open, and my sister storms into my room. You brought them here. You brought them here. Over and over again. Nope, and wake up, Dad. He goes to check on her. She's sound asleep in her bed. My door has 2 almost hand-shaped dents in it. I did not do that, nor was there before. Dad looks worried and in a very unconvincing voice says, "Maybe I was dreaming." He looks beyond scared. Goes back to his room. I go back to mine and spend the rest of the night wishing my door had a lock. I'm about 19 now. Sister has become a totally different person. Gone completely antisocial and spends a lot of time in her room. I often swear I hear her talking at night through the walls. Our rooms are right beside each other. I often hear scratching, knocking, mumbling, and banging on the wall that divides our rooms. Mom is worried sick about her. Dad doesn't know what to do. He says he hears it too sometimes. She still stands in random places at night. One time I woke up to her staring down at me from the side of my bed. Final story. It's Christmas Day. Whole bunch of family over. My younger cousin is chilling with me playing Xbox. My sister comes down the stairs. I'm surprised to see her. She normally doesn't leave her room anymore, especially when people are around. Cousin takes one look at her, and her face is full of terror. She says nothing and starts crying and going into hysterics. Her mom rushes down and asks what happened. She manages to choke out, "Carla's, my sister, friend, is going to kill me." Carla is standing there with an unbelievable, scary grin on her face and gives a sinister laugh while reaching out towards my cousin. Cousin screams and runs upstairs and hides behind her mom for the rest of the night. The next day, Carla suddenly looks normal. That night, the scratching sound stopped. No more mumbling either. Neither me nor Dad has seen her standing around randomly at night. A few days later, I got a call from my cousin's mom. She had to bring her to the ER. That was 6 years ago, and my cousin is acting just like my sister did. My cousin becomes very violent towards anyone who tries to approach her. Develops a fascination with fire and burns down her house. My sister is still normal. No weird shit going on in the house anymore. Haven't seen my cousin in years. Last I heard, she was sent in for mental evaluation.
This one will be a bit long and sloppily told, but I haven't shared this with anyone before, so maybe one of you can tell me what I saw. Working a logging job in Northern Canada, British Columbia specifically. Late at night, drinking by the fire, just me, the foreman, and 2 other tree fallers. Typical bullshit session, complaining about the cold, planning the next day off, playing with the fire, etc. An unholy screaming sound comes out of the pitch-black forest. We all go dead silent, and I quietly ask what the fuck that was. No response. Look away from the direction of the noise so I can gauge the reaction on the foreman's face. This dude is a tough-as-nails older fellow that hunts big game in the off-season, and he looks horrified. My heart rate has tripled by this point and I'm about ready to run. Before I move, I look back to where the noise was and I see it. A small, gangly humanoid hunched at the edge of the firelight. It's about 3 to 5 feet tall max, has sandy skin with bruise-like splotches of black and dark reflective eyes. As I'm losing my sanity looking at this fucking thing, something whiffs by its head, and it lets out a dry, guttural hiss. A moment after I realized what it was, the foreman picked up and whipped another rock at it, which caused it to scamper off while making that awful noise. The second it was out of view, he firmly said, "Truck," before running. We all ran with him to his rig and squished into the cab before climbing into the back. Feeling mostly safe in the sleeping cab, we all began asking questions. He told us that he had seen the things once before and that we were lucky that only one showed up. According to him, the things like to fuck with loggers who get too close to their territory and will attack those that cut down trees within it. He told us that when he was younger, he saw 2 of them grab a man by the ankles and try to drag him away. The only thing that saved him was his foreman at the time, who shot a couple of shells filled with rock salt for bears at them. Said he would have used his handgun on it, but he didn't want to risk us not hearing an ambush. We all stayed together until morning and told the rest of the crew that we were attacked by a cougar and needed to move camp. After a few calls and hours of cleaning up, we moved to a spot about 100 kilometers away. I didn't see any more of those things that season, and I will never go that far north again.
Summer, 1968. A miner named Alex M. was prospecting in the Canadian Northwest Territories, along with his partner Väinö Hymanen, working for a Vancouver-based mining company. They were out scouting for mineral ore deposits in some pretty remote and rough terrain. It was an uneventful excursion until the last day of their trip, when they stumbled across a very curious discovery buried out there in the isolated wilderness. While peering over the side of a cliff, they noticed an odd gouge in the earth below. The gouge had a flat gully at its bottom, measuring 50 feet by 4 feet, and 2 large rounded boulders at the top, covered in lichen. There was also an inexplicable tube-shaped fog that just seemed to hover nearby, unmoving and silent. It was all anomalous enough that they decided to take a closer look and explore this strange sight. On closer inspection, they found rocks scattered all about the area, about 3 feet long. They seemed to be composed of smaller silvery rocks that were translucent, similar to looking at frogs' eggs. They collected several of these smaller rocks, which were as smooth as glass and about the size of a potato. Neither one of them could identify what sort of mineral it could possibly be. They also found numerous teardrop-shaped pieces of smelted rock that looked like glass as well. As they puzzled over this weird discovery, the fog that swirled and churned silently nearby began to make both men nervous. To add to the surreal environment, there was an enormous uprooted tree lying next to the mist, with huge roots jutting out in all directions. The tree could not have come from the rocky gorge, but how did it get there? They had not the slightest idea.
A few years back, I went to work at the mines up in northern Quebec. It's harsh work and you're isolated, but it pays really well, and you get both free rent and food while you're there, so if you can handle it, it's definitely worth it. Still, it gets pretty lonely up there, especially during the holidays. So it's Christmas Eve, and we have the day off tomorrow, so we're partying in the common house, which is kind of a bar and dining room at the same time. We have some music on, people are drinking beer, and people are playing pool, despite the fact that we're missing one of the balls. And of course, someone has to fuck up and go, "Man, I wish I could be with my wife and kids right now." Killed the party all right. Next thing you know, everyone is just sitting there silent, wishing they could go back to their family. I'm from Montreal myself, so we're quite a few of the guys, and then Leo spoke up. "I might have a way, guys. We could go to Montreal tonight and be back by sunrise." Of course, most people just called him stupid, but a few of us decided to see where he was going with this, and he told us to follow him to his cabin. In total, there were 8 of us, all from Montreal. He told us to get our coats and meet him by his pickup truck. So I got my things and met him there. His pickup truck was parked by a huge dead tree. Once he made sure everyone was there, he told us to shush up and to not say anything, to remain quiet until he told us everything was clear. Once he got everyone to shut up, which took a few minutes since 2 or 3 of us had a few beers already, he knocked on the tree. 3 times, then 2. We waited there just long enough to start thinking he was crazy when some fucking guy stepped out from behind the tree. The guy was huge, easily 7 foot tall, wore a heavy black fur coat and a black wide-brimmed hat. The lower half of his face was wrapped in a scarf, just as black as the rest of what he was wearing. He looked at Leo, seemingly recognizing him, then at us. He looked back to Leo, and in a bass voice that felt like it shook my bones, he said, "All right, you know the rules, however." Then he walked back behind the tree. Andre, the youngest of us, went to check behind the tree. The huge man wasn't there anymore. Then Leo told us this. "All right, you're all getting in my truck and I'm driving. Rules tonight are simple. You don't say God or Jesus while in my truck. No one gets in or out until we get to our destination. No one goes to a church or anything that stupid, and we absolutely have to be back by sunrise. Don't worry, I've done this plenty of times before. It's perfectly safe." We started having our doubts at that moment, and in fact, Carl decided he wanted nothing to do with this and left. So there were now only 7 of us. We piled up into the truck and Leo drove off into the night. Anyway, everything seemed normal for the first 2 minutes of the trip. Then Leo turned onto a dirt road. Now I want you to understand something. Northern Canada is a fucking wasteland. There is nothing up there. If you get lost, you're pretty much dead, and most dirt roads lead nowhere. They're usually the result of people driving off to go get wasted in the woods, or the lumber industry making its way into the forest. So, you can understand why a few of us got nervous when he decided to follow a dirt road in the middle of the night in winter. Still, he shushed us and reminded us not to say the forbidden words. Then we saw something. Far, far ahead there seemed to be a light, like a dancing blue flame far in the distance. Leo didn't seem to be driving all that fast, yet sometimes the trees around us seemed to zip by at lightning speed, while at other times to slow to a crawl. The dirt road seemed to curve and twist, and weirdest of all, we kept passing people on the side of the road. In the dead of winter, in the middle of nowhere, people just walking on the side of the road, sometimes wearing nothing but rags. Andre said we should stop for them. Leo called him stupid and told him to sit back down. After about an hour of this, the light disappeared and we arrived at the end of the dirt road, where it connected to another road going across it. Leo turned right on it, and a few kilometers in front of us we could see the Jacques Cartier Bridge. We looked behind us, couldn't see the dirt road. We seemed to be on a highway. So we got into town. He drove each of us to our places, taking note of where we stayed so he could pick us back up when it was time to leave, then left on his own. Needless to say, our relatives were baffled. Personally, I went to visit my girlfriend. She was kind of freaked out, but really happy to see me anyway. We had a dinner, nothing fancy though, since we had both already eaten, watched a movie. At 4 a.m, the doorbell rang. Elise was wondering who it was, but I answered right away, and there was Leo. He looked drunk, really drunk. He fucking stank of it. He told me to get in the truck right now and that we had no time to lose. I barely took the time to say goodbye to Elise before leaving. I still think it's what would eventually lead to us breaking up. Me showing up out of nowhere, then fucking off without a proper goodbye. So I got into the truck. 5 of us, he needed to pick up 2 more. Thing is, he decided he didn't feel like it. He wanted to go home. We had no clue what would happen if he didn't pick them up, and it took over half an hour of arguing and even threatening to get him to pick them up. By the time we left Montreal, it was 5:15 a.m. We'd be back just in time for the sunrise. So Leo got on the highway, then drove into a dirt road. Seemingly not the same as the one we had arrived from, but as soon as we were on it, the light reappeared and he followed it, at least for about 20 minutes, and that's when everything went to shit. At some point, we slowed down, though we weren't aware of it at first because of the surreal feeling I had explained earlier. It became clear that it was Leo slowing down, though, and eventually he stopped. The people who had been walking alongside the road began approaching the truck. I noticed they were really fucking pale. He looked at us, then said, "Give me a minute, guys, I need to go take a piss," then grabbed the door handle. Guy was quick enough to grab him and stop him, however. Somehow we managed to wrestle him to the back of the truck, and I took the driver's seat driving, following the light like he had. That's when he started cursing like a fucking sailor. And everyone freaked out, knowing he would eventually say, Jesus or God. Suddenly, someone stuffed a sock in his mouth and two of the guys were holding him down. We drove like that with him freaking out in the back seat for about half an hour when something hit me in the back of the head. I didn't realize it then, but the others told me it's Leo who kicked me behind the head. Still, the road was icy and bumpy, so that was more than enough to make me lose control of the truck. The last thing I remember is us crashing into a snowy ditch. I woke up in the common house on a sofa in the morning. The other workers had found us in a snowbank outside, passed out. They were worried we had died of hypothermia or something, but turns out we were all right, just a bit cold and shaken, as if we had just passed out there. I looked around and noticed Leo was missing. They told us he had gotten up this morning and left to go work in another work camp. He had left in his truck, driving north. We would call the one work camp further north later on to check on him. They say he never came in. Never heard of him again. I'm still not quite sure of what happened that night. Maybe we all imagined it. Maybe we were drunk. Maybe it was a prank. Still, to this day, I freak out a little when a large man walks up from behind me, and I still have dreams of the light in the distance dancing and taunting us as I seek the road back to my home.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the archives in the description.